Pat Smith, our great friend, three-man front, joins us now on 365 Sports. So, Pat, Alabama's not happy, Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, if they're 12-1 and lose a game. What's it been like after the last 4 to 5 days?
Oh, it seems like a yesteryear ago, guys, that Alabama was that good based on the last season and a half. Man, it's been rough. You know, we always work on Labor Day because it's the opening of the college football season. And, you know, we thought we were going to come in on Monday and talk about Auburn's big win against Baylor and Alabama going down to Doak Campbell, getting a win. And it was going to be a nice laid back Labor Day. And then, oh my gosh, it was absolutely took me back about 25 years ago when Mike Shula was the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and everybody was wanting to just absolutely go crazy on a Monday after a Saturday, ripping into the Tide and how bad they are. Man, I'm telling you, this fan base, they are on edge right now, and I'm not really sure that they're going to be able to come off the edge based on what they have in the next couple of weeks.
Pat, I tell you what, I knew it was bad because you're not a clicks and views overreaction guy, but I thought that it was telling that when that game was going on, you put up the buyout and the contract details of Kalen DeBoer. I don't know if Alabama has that kind of money or not, but I can tell you, I've seen some of the quotes coming, maybe anonymous donors, whatever. Everybody's pissed, aren't they?
They're beyond pissed. And listen, you guys go to work every day and you see an oil well on the side of a road. That's no big thing in the state of Texas. There's not any oil wells in West Alabama. I'm just here to tell you, okay? That's a problem. The $69.3 million buyout, guys, I don't care how bad it gets. And that's why I sent it out in mid-game, because I was already getting blown up. People texting me from Doak Campbell going, oh, my gosh, you know, what's his buyout? What's happening? And I said, okay, for just future reference, guys, this is what it looks like. Because if Alabama is not the highest in NIL in the SEC, which they're not, you mean to tell me that they're going to find $69.3 million underneath Coleman Coliseum to pay Kalen DeBoer? The answer is no. They're going to have to stick this out. They're going to have to do whatever they can to right this ship. Because in this world of NIL and transfer portal, they just do not have that money that is just sitting there. And it's going to be a really tough pill to swallow. So now they're just hoping that they can kind of right the ship a little bit, that they can get back into it. Because the talking points this week has been, well, everything that they wanted at the end of the year, the goals are still intact. Going to Atlanta, we haven't played an SEC game. Okay, that's still on the table. Well, if we go to Atlanta, that means that we're going to be able to go to the college football playoffs. So there's a lot of what-if scenarios that are brewing right now. But based on the fandom that watches football, and they're very educated guys. I know we get a bad rap in this state in regards to, you know, the craziness that poisons trees and throws bricks through coaches' windows. But these people know good football. And when they see that Alabama's effort was lackadaisical against FSU, that's a problem. And that's one of the biggest things that they have with Kalen DeBoer right now.
Yeah, I think I was going to ask you before you said that, of like, hey, what was the most alarming thing? And I think it's pretty clearly from what I've seen, the effort piece, huh?
Yeah. Well, now, when a coach comes out after the game and you have him on Monday talking about, well, you know, just got to remind everybody that, you know, that they got to play with fire. You know, they got to come out with their intensity. You are in an opposing, you know, stadium in front of 68,000 crazy fans. How can you not get fired up for that game? Do you have to honestly remind these kids that they're football players and that you got to, you know, go out there with your head on fire and try to play with intensity? That's the thing that was the most alarming. It's like, hey, you go on the road and you lose a 3-point game to Florida State. Okay, you get it. No problem. But when you see in the first half, secondary guys not running to the ball, Alabama had the most missed tackles in that football game against Florida State than they've had in the Kalen DeBoer era in Tuscaloosa. The effort was just poor. That's the thing that's got the people most upset about. And then when you have a coach that's very mild-mannered, listen, he's not going to pull a Saban. He's not going to cuss you out at a press conference. It's not, you know, made for TV press conference viewing with Kalen DeBoer. He's very soft-spoken. He's like the dad that's the chaperone on the field trip. You know, he's going to say all the right things. People are now pissed. Like they want to see him get ticked off and grab somebody's face mask and, pop somebody on the behind like Nick Saban did.
Yeah, that you cannot change the personality. Otherwise, it's fake, and players would notice and understand that too. And that doesn't mean he can't raise his voice. So you remember it was a Greg Byrne. It was just like in the last few months when he was discussing the NIL and what Alabama could or could not do, and that it kind of validates what you said at the start when you mentioned the buyout.
Yeah, no, he did. I mean, listen, Alabama, and when this first got launched, and that was the major reason why Nick Saban retired, because him and Kirby Smart, the way that they have always run their programs, it was all about, hey, look, we're going to develop NFL kids, okay? You come here, we're going to develop you. You stay here for 3 or 4 years, and we're going to put you in a situation where you can make tens of millions of dollars playing for the Shield. That was the recruiting. That's what both of those guys did. Well, once it pivoted to now pay for play, and you've got 17 and 18-year-old kids that have actually done nothing on the field, but now you're paying them like there's some kind of high-profile MLB free agent, hoping that you're going to be able to get a couple $1 million return of investment out of them. That was a problem, and Alabama was very slow to the table because of the way Nick Saban always ran things. They didn't have the kind of money that the Ole Misses had, or the Texases, or the Texas A&Ms. Auburn has finally got their NIL going in the right direction. They're spending over $20 million this year on their roster. Meanwhile, Alabama, I'm told, is right underneath $20 million. So to be a blue blood and being able to explain to this fan base that you don't have the money to go out and do something, that is problematic, and people are calling BS on that. So Greg Byrne's got a lot to explain, hoping for him and the Greg Byrne fans out there that, he's going to be able to kind of at least put a product on the field that makes this fan base feel good, or you're going to have people not give money or go to the stadium, and it's going to be an extremely bad look for Greg Byrne.
I used to love the Saban press conferences, his post-game, whatever. What is the reaction? And Pat, I'm reminding you where I'm coming from. What do Alabama fans how do they react when people say now that, well, because the NIL has leveled the playing field, that some teams in the SEC might have had NIL before there was NIL? How do they react when they hear those type of allegations?
Well, you've got the old guard that just, it's the crowd that would be like, hey, get off my yard, or yelling at the clouds. It's that kind of group that hates change. And basically, let's just be honest, because all these players were getting paid, they were just getting paid under the table.
Yep.
It's been going on in the SEC forever. You guys know about the old Southwest Conference. It goes without saying, everybody was doing it. But now that it's above board and it's kind of leveled the playing field, it's really difficult for the old guard Alabama fan to go, look, man, this is killing college football. It was okay when Alabama was running the table year after year, with the 12-1 season and always a member in the college football playoff. But now that the Vanderbilts of the world can put people out on the field and give you a competitive game and almost beat you now almost on a yearly basis, it becomes a huge problem. So yeah, it's been something that they have had to try to overcome, but so far it has not gone very well, as you can imagine.
Pat, elsewhere in the state, Auburn rolled into Waco last Friday night, got a very convincing and it's sometimes dominating win over Baylor to open things up for Hugh Freeze. Jackson Arnold able to run really well. I don't know what to expect of the passing game still at this point, but what's kind of been the reaction to the way the Tigers kick things off?
Well, it's unfortunate for Auburn fans because the number one story is Alabama. So if Alabama is doing well, it's the number one story. If Alabama's doing bad, it's the number one story.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a part of living in a state to where that Auburn has always been, the stepchild or the second in the family, so to speak. And so it's a situation for them now that they finally kind of turned the corner. They've got the momentum, but the Auburn people are over the moon. They knew that was going to be a very difficult contest in Waco. They knew that it was going to be a test. They knew that if they could get out of there with a 1-point win, that was going to help propel them for the rest of the season, because they got a couple lettuce or cupcake games coming up, but then it really gets difficult in the SEC. They got to go to Norman, Oklahoma. Then they got to go to College Station. So, Auburn feels good about themselves, but they also know that there's some certain areas that they're going to have to clean up. They gave up a lot of yards in the secondary, and that was supposed to be one of their strengths. And they cannot go through an SEC season running Jackson Arnold like he did in Waco. But for the first game of the year, and with all the pressure that Hugh Freeze has been on for the previous 2 years, that was a huge, monumental win in Baylor.
Yeah, that was they just did what they were better, as Craig mentioned. You kind of wondered, but eventually they just wore you down, and they didn't panic. Baylor was able to throw the ball, but they couldn't run the ball, so they had to throw the ball. And I was impressed though with Jackson Arnold. I know that at times you wondered about what he was going to do when they had to throw it. Well, they didn't have to very often. Were you surprised that Aranda, with all of his defensive expertise, did not find a counter, or was it just it wouldn't have mattered because of who they were playing?
Well, yes, on both fronts. And the reason I say that is because, one, Auburn's offensive line, and listen, I work with Cole Kublik. He does our morning show, and I come on right after him. Cole knows as much about offensive lines as anybody in America. And he has been telling me for months that of all the years of covering Auburn, and of course he played at Auburn, he was like, this is going to be one of the best offensive lines that Auburn has had in quite some time. This is legitimately one of the better offensive lines in the SEC. So with that being said, I was not surprised that Auburn had success running the football. I didn't really know how much, Aranda would be able to scheme against that. But moving forward for Auburn, that's a huge deal because Hugh Freeze wants Jackson Arnold to stay in the pocket. And I know he didn't do that a lot against Baylor, but moving forward, you're probably going to have to do that against SEC-type defenses. And with that being said, that's why a lot of Auburn people, including Cole, feel really good about where this team is and where they can go.
I love that Alabama's in this position. I can only imagine for like 21-year-olds. Like, this is just such spacey, weird territory. They've never known anything other than greatness. But
listen, I work with someone, one of our producers on the show, bless his heart. He went to Alabama. He's 27 years old. He does not know what's going on right now. Like, he is absolutely losing his mind. He cannot believe it. And I try to remind him, I've been blessed to be in this business now for over 30 years. I started covering Alabama in 1993. So I have seen every peak and every valley and all the coaches prior to Nick Saban getting there in 2007. So I've lived it. I've lived it on the radio every single day. Been very blessed to do that. And I'm just trying to give him a little bit of encouragement and just say, look, man, just understand, Alabama's been playing football for a long time, and what you experienced under Nick Saban, we will never, ever see again, and you're going to probably have to take some lumps before you can get back to the promised land.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got to be a crazy time period, I would imagine. So it's how fitting is it that Louisiana Monroe, thinking back to Saban's loss early in his Alabama career, is up next, and then like you got Wisconsin, you got Georgia. Yep. And I was saying, like, it's just interesting to see what's ahead for Alabama. Then Auburn, I love that Oklahoma is the first SEC matchup here in a couple of weeks. So really interesting stuff ahead. But, Pat, how much confidence do you have that for all the negative there is swirling right now, that Alabama can still go win 10 or 11 games somehow or be way better off than the way that it feels after just this first week?
Well, listen, everybody's saying the right things. Everybody's saying the biggest improvement is from week to week 2. We hear all that. All the goals are still in front of us. But, guys, based on what I've seen over the body of work, Alabama's 5-5 out of their last 10 games. Based on this coaching staff with Kalen DeBoer, based on Kane Womack, the defense coordinator, who's in his second year, I'm just telling you, I think the Alabama fans are going to have to lower their expectations. And I'm talking about 7 or 8 wins. I mean, the schedule is brutal. And based on the problems that you saw down in Tallahassee, I just don't know if it's a quick fix. I really don't, because as you guys know, you can't teach want to. And if you don't want to go out there in the season opening game in a hostile environment and you're playing for the University of Alabama and everything in the tradition, and you just go out there and you just be like, okay, well, let's just go out there. Okay, big deal. Let's make TikToks. Let's walk into the stadium with, stuffed animals or whatever the crap they were doing. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I just don't see anything that would give me the hope of Alabama being more than a possibility of an 8-win team. And listen, I'll come on this show and I will eat crow if they end up being a 10-win team this year. But based on what I've seen, and based on all the things that they just did not, and the things that they were doing in fall camp, was not present in what they did in Tallahassee. And to me, that's a coaching problem. And if that's a coaching problem, I'm not really sure that you're going to be able to turn things around in the gauntlet that's the SEC.
Quick answer, if you don't mind, Pat. Who's taking the most heat outside of the coaching staff? What is it? Simpson? Who is it? The safety that was kind of lollygagging on that run for down inside the red zone. Who's taking the heat?
Right now, the biggest heat is on the defense right now, and that's Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator. Because listen, everyone in this state knows Gus Malzahn. I mean, covering Gus Malzahn all those years as the head coach at Auburn, you know exactly what Gus Malzahn is going to do. You had all summer long to plan for the misdirection. You had all summer long to plan for the eye candy and all the crazy high school stuff that Gus Malzahn did when he was at Auburn. And Alabama acted like it was the first time they ever saw a Gus Malzahn-led offense. Mm-hmm. It was purely amazing. And for the most part, the guys that were loafing during the game, the missed tackles, that was on the defense. And so that's why Kane Womack is getting a lot of the blame. But the quarterback, Ty Simpson, he kind of looked like a deer in the headlights at times. So there's equal blame going on. But I would say right now it's still on the defensive side. But don't make no bones about it. Kalen DeBoer, he's the one with the 7th highest contract in all of college football. He's the one that's taking all the bullets right now.
Thank you, Pat. Great stuff. That's why we had you on, to hear what is going on in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, and the state of Alabama. Thanks for your time. Have a great week.
Thanks, boys. Talk soon.